Good morning, and thanks again for joining me on the conversation with Kelly Diamond. You can catch me every Thursday at 6:30 a.m. Pacific Time, 9:30 Eastern. Also, you can catch my written word every Monday at globalwealthprotection.com. So, today's title is my extreme, with the big old quoties, views. This episode will be about cops. Mainly because I had an encounter this past weekend, and it, I don't know, it's just I'm almost just using this to vent more than anything else. But this past weekend, I saw what appeared to be a homeless family in the parking lot of the place that I shop at, and they were right by a dumpster. They were out of the way. They weren't by any major arteries obstructing it or anything, and they weren't by any storefronts trying to hit people up with people walking in or out. They weren't even roaming the parking lot begging for money. They were literally just planted by this dumpster. And so I went into Trader Joe's and I thought, well, not I want to help people, but it's not always the money that helps because they don't know what to do with it. So I went and got him a gift card to Trader Joe's, and I figured, you can buy yourself some groceries, feed your kids and whatever. There's a family, so it was like there's two kids there too, two little kids, and the wife. And so I come out, I'm like, okay, I'll just meet you at the car. And I just go give this family their card, and there's a cop there, and I guess he's lecturing this family. So I run over there and just inject myself. Cop's all put out. He's like, excuse me? And I look over at the family, and I hand the card over to the guy, husband, father, that was holding the sign, and I said, thank you for waiting for me here. And the guy kind of looked at me confused, and I said, thanks for waiting here for me, and I gave him the card. And I looked over at the cop, and I said, I was just giving him the card. I was just giving him the card to Trader Joe's. So, and he goes on, and I'm really put out by the fact that he's detaining me absolutely nothing. But it turns out that he was responding to a call. So somebody called on this family that's out of the way and not doing anything to anybody, which there's a special place in hell for that person. Like, seriously. I mean, it's one thing if they were harassing people and scaring people. I mean, okay, it's a place of business, and I can kind of see that. Standing out of the way and not really doing anything, I mean, what's the difference between that family and the dude standing on the other side of the dumpsters in the same plaza, spinning signs encouraging people to come into the plaza and shop there? Still a person standing there with a sign asking people to take some sort of action, with a call to action, But one of them was asking for money for nothing, and the other was asking for money for something, I guess is the difference. But both were just asking. Neither of them were forcing anybody to do anything. So, I don't know. The cop was a dick, of course. I'm doing my job. I'm responding to a call, blah, blah, blah. I'm on official business. And of course that got me going on a tear. It always does. It just pisses me off every time. I mean, cops never cease to disappoint me. It's like, God, you could have been something today, and you just chose to be a dick. Another day of you being a dick rather than just being a decent human being. Your mom must be so fucking proud. Anyway, and when I go on my tears, typically I'm told how extreme I am. And I'm beginning to think, in fact, I pretty firmly believe that extremism, the term itself, is a very subjective term, right? Because here I am, 5'4", maybe $110, and I mean, I'm perfectly healthy. I've got a very small frame, but if you put me next to maybe my 1.5-year-old or my 1-year-old niece, I'm a giant. I'm a giant. She literally breaks her neck to look up at me and make eye contact. Okay? If you put me next to somebody who's morbidly obese, I'm also extreme. I look like a wanton waif who needs to be sponsored. But when looked at on my own, I look like an average woman. Now, I see the United States as the morbidly obese person. Right? And I'm the extreme only in comparison to where it's at. So imagine telling a morbidly obese person who's used to consuming 10,000 calories a day to cut back their consumption to 2,000 calories a day. I'll bet you anything the term starvation is going to come out. Now, there's an actual meaning to the term starvation, of which that morbidly obese person will not experience. They're not going to experience starvation if you put them on a 2,000 calorie diet. I'll actually gain weight if I consume 2,000 calories a day. Okay, that's what 2,000 calories is. And I'm not much of a calorie counter. I love fat and I love sugar and I love gluten. Okay, and I'm too damn poor to have a special diet. So anyway, the obese person is going to start using hyperbolic terms to describe such draconian measures as cutting them back 8,000 calories a day, right? So I mean that's what libertarians sound like when they say cut the defense budget. Even the big L libertarians are saying cut the defense budget. Right? And when they say to do that, and they say, well, just cut the Department of Defense, bring everybody home, start there. There's no need for such extreme measures. Wait, occupying a country is the extreme. Morbid obesity is the extreme. Asking to remove yourself from the country is actually quite normal when you look at it from a global scale, because no one else is occupying Iran or the surrounding areas of Iran except for the United States and its neighboring countries that just happen to be there, right? When I say, well, why don't you cut, you can cut the spending here, here, and here just to start. Well, why do you have to be so extreme? It's not extreme. It's not extreme. The extreme is that we're going bankrupt. The extreme is our national debt. Okay, that's the extreme. Frugality is not an extreme. It's a normal course of action with most Austrian economic teachings. Frugality, saving money, paying cash on the barrel, not extending yourself on lines of credit is considered normal behavior. That you would bust out the credit card and melt it out of the block of ice is an extreme. Go and use it only because I have no other means of bailing myself out but going on this line of credit. Okay. Now, because extremism is usually defined by what it's being contrasted to, right, my views on the police are considered extreme. Because I don't call it writing a citation, I call it extortion. Well, you're going to use extreme terms. Extreme terms? Well, it's only extreme if you're going to use that same definition toward me because I'm a civilian and I don't have the shiny badge and special pajamas, right? If I don't got lights on my car, then I guess when I go around demanding, if I go around with a weapon holstered to my side, open carry, right, and I go and demand that you pay me a sum of money or pay my boss a sum of money because you had a broken taillight or because you changed lanes in an intersection or because you didn't come to a complete stop at a stop sign in an otherwise empty parking lot, right? If I go and demand money from you for doing that, with a gun holstered to my side saying, here's a coupon that says you need to pay me. Please remit to that address there in the name, pay to the order of me or my boss. That'd be great. Now, if you comply, it never comes to violence. Right? If you just say, okay, up at gunpoint, or if I don't even pull out my gun, I just show you that it's there. And I ask for a sum of money. If you just give it to me, then you're complying. This is just a transaction, right? This is not robbery. Perhaps it is just panhandling. Okay. But what if I say no, I don't want to pay you? What if you say no, I'm not going to pay you or your boss? Get bent. And I put my hand on my gun and I said, you're going to write me the check. You're going to give me the money. I'm not giving you shit. All right, then I'm going to take you with me and put you in a cage until my boss sees fit to talk to you about this matter. The thing is if I do it, I don't have the fancy terms. I have to call it what it is. I have to say that I'm holding you up at gunpoint. I have to call it a cage. I can't call it a jail. I don't have a jail. I have a basement and a cage, a literal cage. Right? I don't have a government that I'm responding to. I don't have a vote. I don't have an official that was voted in. I just have a boss. Right? So when I do it, I have to call it what it is. I don't get the special terms. I don't get the government terms that cloak what it really is when the private sector performs the exact same task and perpetrates the exact same deeds. So then I engage with cops online. Oh, sure. Why don't you just go paint this broad brush, prejudicial, depiction born straight out of your imagination? Whatever. Born out of my imagination? No. Cute little stories about girls in forests is what's born out of my imagination. Okay? Stories about cops, I can't imagine that. I can't make this shit up. I wish I could. I know I don't wish I could because that's fucking warped. But the thing is that these stories that I'm reading about on a fairly regular basis, daily, aren't some isolated incidents. They're stories that are being investigated not because they happened, but that they leaked. There's stories that are absolutely reprehensible and offend my very humanity, telling me that I'm imaginative. No. My imagination isn't capable. My imagination is not capable of these stories. Just like when I watched the movie Seven, I'm like, what sick fuck came up with that shit? I can't conceive that. And that is an imaginary story. But the thing is I'm reading news articles, actual documentation. I'm watching video footage. Okay? This is not my imagination anymore. This is what you guys are doing as cops. Well, I don't do that. I don't beat people. I defend the Constitution. You defend the Constitution. Seriously? Do you defend people's right to property? Now, granted, the right to property technically isn't even in the Constitution. So I guess you can get away with robbing people. But for whatever reason, despite the Constitution, there is actually a notion of property rights here in the United States. And it's somehow grounded in the Constitution. Because if there isn't a property right, then there is no stealing. Right? You can't steal if something doesn't belong to somebody else. So there is a recognition of property right. And you guys go out and violate it on a daily fucking basis. Millions of times over. Each each of the cops. We're not violating people's rights. No? Well, if I have a warrant, me breaking into your house is no longer breaking and entering. Well, isn't that fucking magical? You have a piece of paper that gives you permission to break into my house from someone who doesn't live there. How exciting. So you can find what? Paraphernalia and plans. So you can confiscate my things. So you're going to break into my house, which I can't do. Okay, as a private citizen, I'm not allowed to break and enter. If I break and enter, I go to court and I go to jail. You break and enter, even the wrong house that you don't have a warrant for. Okay? And you don't go to jail. You just say, whoops, hey, here's some money from my employer, who, by the way, is basically you. Here's some of your money back to fix your door that I broke unannounced in the middle of the night. So that's if you get the wrong house. If you get the right house, there is no repairing their property. Right? They can't sue you for breaking their property. Then you steal their plant. A plant. So, the cop apologist, okay, person who's not a cop, the cops just get all fucking offensive and block you, right? Because they can't engage in a real conversation. They're not about conversation, they're about force. And if they can't use it on you on the internet, there's really nothing else they can do. They will threaten you, though. It's amazing. And get into an exchange with any cop on the internet, and most times, though not all, most times it comes to threats. They'll actually threaten you online. Maybe I need to get a few of my buddies over to your house. Really? You're going to use city resources that you're not supposed to be using on people who aren't suspected of a crime just to avenge somebody who pissed you off a little bit on the internet? And of course, you're going to get your gang with you. You're not just going to do it yourself. You're going to get your boys. It's a gang. Cops are a gang, right? And they extort people. They're road pirates. They hit you up for a certain amount of money all the time on the road. While you're on the open seas of the road, that's what you're doing. You're getting extorted. Because it's not enough that you're extorted by the state to pay taxes for those roads. You got to pay on top of that for driving in a manner that doesn't seem right. I called somebody out and said there were quotas. There's no quotas. Of course there's no quotas, sweetheart. You're not allowed to say there are. You're not supposed to say there are. So, okay, I'm supposed to believe you? I'm supposed to believe a cop who's actually legally allowed to lie in an interrogation? I don't think so. You know, these aren't extremes. This is the law. This is the very book we're playing. This is the book that the cops play by. This is out of your playbook. If I do what you do, it's called extortion. It's called breaking and entering. It's called theft. If I break into somebody's house and steal their weed, it's called theft and breaking and entering. Okay? Those are the charges I'm going to face, and I will do time. If I hold somebody up and threaten them with a gun, if they don't do what I say, taser them into compliance, and put them in a cage to wait until somebody else can hear them out, that's called armed robbery and kidnapping. This is what you do for a living. You've made an occupation out of it. So then the cop apologist, who's not a cop, says, well, let's not, they aren't all bad. I was helped by one. Oh, okay. They aren't all bad. You were helped by one. You were helped by an individual who happened to be a cop. He didn't help you because he was a cop. Being a cop doesn't make you a fucking hero. I've helped people without the costume. Not because I want the pat on the back, but just to demonstrate that it's possible to be a good person without a badge. The cop apologist will say, well, some of them have families and they're good husbands and, they're the 25% that don't beat their wives. They pet their dogs, they love their kids, and they're good upstanding citizens yes, off the job. Off the job. But they got to turn all that shit off when they're on the clock. Well, no, look here, there's a story of a cop who bought this poor woman a baby seat, a car seat for her kid, rather than write her a ticket for not having one. Uh-huh. But you don't need to be a cop to do that. You need to be a cop to write the ticket. But you don't need to be a cop to buy somebody a car seat that they need. They didn't do that because they were cops. They did that by the way they're a cop. Just like the cop that bought the car seat happened to be white. He didn't buy the car seat because he was white either. And he didn't buy the car seat because he's a dude. But the car seat because he tapped into his humanity for a brief second. Okay? Charity doesn't come from people just because they have a costume or a badge or because they vote. Charity is an act of humanity. That's all it is. And any human being is capable of doing it. And because anybody is capable of doing it, the potential supply for the demand of charity is infinite. Which is why it doesn't deserve a premium. Okay? Noble acts don't deserve a premium. Now, cops aren't noble by definition. By definition, they're legalized gang members who commit crimes on a daily basis. So then you say, well, what the fuck are you doing? This is what you do for a living. So then there's two arguments that I hear on a semi-regular basis, and that is, well, if you don't want these to be the laws, then I suggest you vote it away. It's my fault. It's the voters' fault, is it? That these are the laws. If I didn't want it this way, I'd simply just vote it away. Poof. And it's magical. See? Everything's just magical to a statist. Look, I have a warrant. It's a piece of paper that says I can break into your house in the middle of the night without even letting you know I'm here. Poof. Magical. All these things, this litany of shit here, if you do it without a badge, it's a crime. But if you get into this magical uniform and have this shiny piece of flair, all of a sudden, poof, it's achieving legal ends. When I speed, it's speeding. I'm breaking the law. When a cop speeds to catch me, it's trying to achieve legal ends. That's doing my job. Which essentially is what you're saying is my job is to break the law. Not enforce it. I'm a hypocrite for a living and I collect money for it. My occupation is hypocrisy. I'm going to arrest you. I'm going to charge you for something I just did. Right? So the cop apologist says, well, if you don't want to, if you don't want to get pulled over, don't break the law. Assuming that all innocent people are released. Right? If you don't want to get pulled over, don't break the law. Well, that's not true. Because you have people arrested for resisting arrest, but we don't know what the initial arrest was for. So how do they resist an arrest when they don't even know what the charges were? Resisting an officer who won't tell them what the charges are. What about the wrong houses? What about the people who are getting shot? for jaywalking. Well, Michael Brown shouldn't have tried to engage the cop that way in such a violent way. I don't know what Michael Brown did. I'll be honest with you. But I'll tell you what, none of that would have happened if the cop wasn't doing his job. Michael Brown would still be alive today going to college. Kelly Thomas would still be alive today, just being the neighborhood, gentle-spirited homeless guy. Don't tell me that it's my fault. It's not my fault. It's not the voters' fault that you're being a dick today. Because you're not even a consistent dick. You let people off with warnings? Why does one person get a warning and the other person doesn't? Because one person was apologetic. I've heard cops tell me that. My dad has told me that. I know friends who've told me that. Well, if they acknowledge that they did something wrong and they're apologetic about it, I typically let them go. Oh, you mean if they kiss your ass, you'll let them go? Oh, officer, I'm so sorry. Please, just let me. I won't do it again. I promise. Oh, I didn't even realize I was going that fast. Oh, okay. I'll take pity on you. I'll be benevolent today. What the fuck? I thought you were protecting and serving. How are you protecting society by not extorting that person? This is that they could turn around and say, well, if you don't want to get caught by the cops, if you don't want to be pulled over, if you don't want them to engage you, then don't break the law. But they engage plenty of people who don't break the law. And what's more is that, look, it can go both ways. If you don't want the cops to pull you over, then don't break the law. Well, if you don't want to be a dick, don't pull people over. But I'm not being a dick by having a broken taillight. I'm not even being a dick if I have weed. I haven't hurt anybody. Gays aren't being assholes because they want to get married, despite the fact that it's illegal in some states. It's as illegal as me having weed. Illegal is illegal. It's on the other side of legal. So it's on the other side of the line. You're willing to arrest gay people for trying to get married now? The most harmless act, in fact, an act of love? We're going to fucking arrest them because it's illegal and it's my job to enforce it. If you don't want it to be that way, then I suggest you start voting. No, you are the enforcer. Cops are the enforcers of mob rule. The reason why the government can get away with what it does is because there are complicit assholes who are willing to go along with whatever they're told. If you know the fucking thing is wrong, it's like LEAP. Law enforcement against prohibition. If you go out and enforce the motherfucking laws, knowing full well that they're wrong, or that they're stupid, that they're petty, that they're paltry, and that they're basically just extortion, then you're an asshole. That you need the voter's conscience to be your conscience, that you need a collective conscience outside yourself to tell you right from wrong, shows what an automaton you are, what a robot, what a sheep you are. That you can't think for yourself. 1 second you were gonna go drag this bitch by her fucking heels to prison, but then boom, somebody voted, and now you guys are besties. Now you leave her alone. Was it wrong or wasn't it wrong to have weed? It's not about right and wrong. It's about legal or illegal. And cops aren't paid to know right from wrong. Which is why they behave the way they do. It's their job to not know right from wrong. And at times, they don't even recognize legal from illegal. And they certainly don't necessarily understand what your rights are. Which is why you have to have a lawyer. It's not extreme when you're using the very terms and definitions set forth from their own playbook. I'm only defining it from a civilian point of view, what the cop is doing. That's not extreme. What's extreme is caging, fining, detaining, harassing people for things that don't hurt anybody. That's not protection. You're not protecting me from anybody. You're not serving anybody. And if you're just going to go blindly enforce any rule that you're told, then you're no different than a fucking Nazi. Hitler can't do shit on his own. Hitler was a fucking wuss on his own. He was just some crazy dude talking shit. But crazy dudes talking shit turn into historic, biblical fucking tyrants when they've got a brute squad to back them up. An unquestioning brute squad. Hitler was elected, people. And he got away with what he did because he had a bunch of complicit assholes who didn't say no and didn't know the difference between right and wrong. Extreme? No, how about a reality check? That's what that is. And until you can linguistically argue your way out of the terms that have already been defined for the rest of society, you cannot win the cop sympathizer, there has to be a good cop somewhere, they're not all bad argument. You cannot win that argument. By default, the best cop in the world starts in the moral red. Because they are first and foremost out to extort you for money for shit that doesn't hurt anybody. All right, I'll catch you next week. Make it a good one. Bye.